My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant Podcast.
The Leader Assistant Podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, before we jump into today's interview, I wanted to share a brief note about this episode's sponsor, which is Life Squire. Life Squire is an assistant resource center focused on matching executives with assistants and creating relationships where both sides thrive. They would love to help you find the perfect job or work with you to enhance your skill set. You can check them out at lifesquire.com/leader assistant. That's lifesquire.com/leader assistant.
Hi, my name's Viveka von Rosen. I'm the Chief Visibility Officer and co-founder of Vengresso, the world's largest digital sales transformation company. And one of my favorite quotes is by Warren Buffett. Quote is, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently." And I like this quote for many different reasons. First of all, I believe he actually said this before social media. So now it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 seconds to ruin it. And in the climate that we're in right now, business, work, religion, you can pretty much be assured that everything you do is going to make it online or become public at some point. And that's why it's so crucial, I think, as far as creating your brand, as far as being engaging in all the socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, that you keep in mind that anything that goes out there is going to represent you. And so it is so crucial to make sure that you're authentic, because I think the big problem, people make mistakes. And if you're kind of authentic in your mistakes and you didn't try to be something else or portray yourself as something else, people are more forgiving. But if you present yourself as, this untouchable guru of everything, and then you make a mistake, and it comes across on the socials, then I think, to Warren Buffett's point, it can ruin your reputation immediately. So I think that authenticity is key. And I think that's an interesting place to start this conversations, because we're talking about the world of executives and virtual assistants, and that VAs, in fact, do a lot of work for us. So how do we stay authentic when a VA is, in essence, speaking for us and representing us?
So, Viveka, what was your very first job? And did it involve any sort of social media?
Yeah, no. I was going to say, computers barely existed in my very first job. So I'll give you a hard no on that one. I folded clothes at Benetton. That was my first job. I don't even know if Benetton still exists. Back when I was 15, and I won't even say how many years ago that was. I became involved in social media in my previous day job before I started my previous company and then this company. And, it was really the birth of social media. It was, Facebook wasn't around yet. Twitter wasn't around yet. We had MySpace, and Match.com. And then, of course, Reid Hoffman and the guys over at LinkedIn said, "Hey, let's do a Match.com for businesses." And in fact, a lot of people don't know this, but Reid Hoffman had created, previous to LinkedIn, a dating site. And so he was, realizing that maybe there wasn't a need for a dating site, but that there was definitely a need for business professionals and to start out in the California area and in the SaaS and software arena. He created LinkedIn. And so I was introduced to LinkedIn pretty early, and I just realized what a powerful business tool it would be. And also, I don't give short answers. So no. Social media was not around when I had my first job.
Nice. So how did you kind of transition into making the LinkedIn world and being an expert and trainer in LinkedIn kind of your full-time gig?
Yeah, I in the job I had, I was part owner and running a co-share space, and we called it executive offices back then, but a co-share space. And what I learned pretty quickly about myself was I was really good at marketing and pretty good at sales and really bad at management. And unfortunately, this job had a huge element of managing people and clients. So I did really, really well at, creating networking events for our clientele and introducing them to each other and helping them with the networking, live networking, because this is before social networking. And one of the events that I created was to introduce the world of Web 2.0, which again tells you how long ago it was, and the idea that your website did not have to be just a brochure, that it could actually engage with the modern or with the buyer. And so at the very end of that presentation, the woman that I brought in, Lori Maycomer of Blue Skies Marketing, she mentioned this thing called LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because I'd managed to double our business in a year doing face-to-face networking, and I believe there were 7 million people on the LinkedIn network at that time. And to me, that was a huge number, because we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have these 100,000, 200,000, 2 billion people marks. So 7 million people, and the potential of reaching out to a big portion of those 7 million people with my virtual services was huge. And so I just kind of dove in. There was only one book on LinkedIn at that time, which was Jason Alba's I'm on LinkedIn, Now What? I reached out to him. He was very gracious about responding. We became, friends online. In fact, he wrote the foreword to my first book. And, I really kind of engulfed myself in this thing called LinkedIn. And thankfully, within a year, an association that we were a member of heard about me and said, hey, come to New York and speak at the Waldorf Astoria to a room full of million and billionaires about this thing called social media. And that was pretty much the launch of my career. It took another year until I was able to release the executive offices and move full-time into LinkedIn to Business, which was my previous business. But that's basically how that happened.
So talk a little bit about the importance of having kind of an online presence or an online personal brand.
Yeah, I think it's crucial now more than ever. And, especially for executives, but also for the people who assist them, like the virtual assistants and the executive assistants out there. Your brand is crucial, and to Warren Buffett's point, you don't want to ruin your reputation by having a bad brand out there. And so when it comes to LinkedIn, especially because it plays so high in the Google algorithm, you need to make sure that you've got a strong brand, whether you're your entry level VA or the CEO of the company, because the modern buyer, it's 62, I think this was in LinkedIn's most recent state of sales report, 62% of modern buyers research their vendor before going with them. And of course, they're going to Google them. And if they Google them, their LinkedIn profile is going to show up. And we don't know who they're researching in a company. Are they researching the CEO? Are they researching their salesperson? Are they researching the back office production line person? Are they researching the engineers? Who are they researching? And so it's crucial that certainly the CEO and the leadership of the company have a strong brand that represents both themselves in the industry, but also their company. But just as crucial, I think, is for for the other folks who might be behind the scenes. But if they're being researched, and if the company's being researched, they need to create a strong brand too. And that's more than just throwing your resume up in 2007 on LinkedIn, and that's, I think, where big issue starts to arise is you got buyers who are looking for a product or a service. They're researching. They click over to the CEO's profile. It looks like crap because no one's done anything with it because he doesn't need a job. And that's what, back in the day, people thought LinkedIn was just for job seekers. And so people start hunting around the company. And, if the company does a bad job of representing itself through its employees, they might move on. And that's the last thing we want, is for your brand to cost you business. We want it to help build your business.
Yeah. I like to talk to assistants about how we as assistants should be one of the best salespeople in our organizations.
Yeah.
And I personally believe LinkedIn is a huge part of this. Could you share maybe an example or two of how you've seen maybe some non-sales roles end up generating business for their company or organization using LinkedIn?
Yeah. No, a perfect example of this is we've got a whole division actually for personal branding. I've got a whole team of profile writers, and it's a natural conversation. A profile writer will be working with, and a lot of them are profile writers because they're like, oh, I don't want to have a sales conversation. Yikes. And it's ironic that, the perfect time to have a conversation about the next steps is when you're writing someone's profile, because the client will ask you, hey, great profile. Thanks so much. Now what?
Right.
To reflect Jason's book, I'm on LinkedIn with an awesome profile. Now what? And so just recently, actually, one of our writers, she just happened, Sophie Bougeot, who great Canadian, by the way, who happens to be our senior leader. She was having a conversation with someone that she wrote a profile for, and it wasn't scary. It was a natural conversation for her, but she was able to glean that, not only did the CEO think that other people on my team need to have a good profile too, but now what? And so she was able to, reach out to our sales department and say, hey, this guy's interested. And by the way, she gets a nice spiff out of that too. A lot of times, whether it's obvious or I don't know what word to use, covert. I don't want that to be negative, to have a negative implication, but our VAs are engaging for us, and so we need to be able to train them in such a way that they can start to have the first conversation for us. In my case, as a writer, another thing is I've got a personal. Well, I've got an assistant with Vengresso itself, but I also have a personal assistant. And, she has been with me for so long. She can speak in my voice. She knows who my buyer persona is. She knows how to initiate those conversations. She knows buying signals. She knows to reach out to me when she sees a buying signal. And I think that's absolutely crucial that our VAs and our assistants are able to do that. And it's easier certainly with someone who's been with us forever, but it's training that's necessary, I think, for someone new to our company.
Yeah. So you mentioned your assistant help you kind of manage your LinkedIn inbox. Do you have tips for executives who might struggle to give up control of their their main inbox or even their just LinkedIn messaging?
Yeah, exactly. And trust me, I'm one of those. So I'll say that with a caveat that our VAs are not supposed to be on LinkedIn doing stuff for us. That kind of goes against LinkedIn's end user agreement. And a lot of busy executives, they'll have 300 invitations to connect in a day, and there's just no way they can manage that. So with the caveat that, of course, this goes against LinkedIn's end user agreement, I think it's important, as I mentioned, for your VA to know very clearly your buyer persona. So one of the first things that Nicole does for me is go through my invitations to connect, and if someone is not a buyer persona, and if they are not, if they haven't customized an invitation to connect, I have created basically a video reply, and she'll send that to everyone. And in the video reply and in the message itself, it says, but please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions and happy to connect, if there's a reason for us to. And so it's interesting because I will say 90% of the time I never hear a response. And so my guess is that for myself and for a lot of the people out there, there's someone's automating some lead generation system, which so goes against LinkedIn's end user agreement. And they have no idea they've invited me to connect. Mm-hmm. She'll alert me immediately if it's if the person has invited me to connect with a private message that's relevant, like, hey, we want you to speak at our next event, or hey, we want to learn more about Vengresso and what you do, because we need some personal branding and we need training on digital sales transformation and social selling. Then she'll, of course, alert me right away. And I see that on my email too. So it's just kind of a backup. And then if it's personalized message, but not crucially relevant, she'll kind of give me a digest at the end of the day, as does LinkedIn. But it's a good backup. I manage all my personal messaging, so she doesn't manage that for me. Now I know for people who are more proactive on inviting people to connect, they'll use their VA to do outreach. The problem of that, of course, is when your VA does outreach to a friend or a colleague or a client or a customer who you already know with the kind of more formalized, hey, we don't know each other, but I noticed that you're doing this and I'd love to connect. Right. That's always, kind of embarrassing. So I don't actually recommend a VA does outbound activity on LinkedIn. A, because it goes against the end user agreement. B, because it can end up with your foot in your mouth. But definitely things like managing an inbox, managing your invitations with guidelines. You have to have really strong guidelines. The other thing that a VA can do, of course, is post for you. You can use a scheduling tool. Of course, we use Everyone Social, but Agorapulse is great. Hootsuite is great. I mean, there's a lot of good scheduling tools out there. We have found that posting natively gets you much better results. And so that's a great thing for a VA to do, not only to post, but to manage the likes and the comments. And similarly to my inbox, my VA will look at the activity on my posts and say, hey, this CEO of this SaaS company in San Francisco asked, a question about your video, and, you might want to respond to it. And then she'll actually send me the link right to the response so that I can jump in there and engage with that person immediately. So she'll more, monitor than engage on those things. But if she sees something that needs activity, she'll call it out to me. And that way I don't have to spend 30, 40, 50 minutes a day reviewing all the activity on my timeline. So those are just a couple things that she does. Another thing that a VA can do is help to manage, once you've created a template for your company, a profile template for your company, the VA can help to manage with that activity of all of your employees upgrading their profiles. And that's one thing that our customer success manager, she'll work with our big corporate teams. She'll usually work with someone on the other side to, make sure that the profiles are getting in and dealing with passwords and making sure the right media is in there. And so that's a great job for a virtual assistant, is to help manage the upgrade of all personal profiles within your company.
That's great. So let's talk about the profile then for a second. What's kind of one or two tips on improving LinkedIn profiles for assistants?
Yeah, and this is great because you can make these changes pretty quickly on everybody's profile in the company. Again, with the understanding that you're not supposed to go in and do something for an employee, but knowing the shortage of time. We'll just say manage these events. So a couple things that you can do right away with your profile to make sure that your profile, to make sure that your executive's profile, and to make sure that all your employees' profiles are well branded and aligned, is a background image. One background image that everyone in the company uploads. Or a lot of times what we'll do is will have several different background images according to where employees, are located or what areas of expertise or silos they're in a particular company. But having that background image can immediately make a statement about the company and help with the branding of that company and make the company actually appear much larger than it actually is, especially if you get all of the employees utilizing, things like the background image. The other thing that you can do is upgrade, as it were, the headline, which is where most people put title at company, which doesn't really say anything. There's nothing there attractive to a buyer, especially if your title or your company doesn't really mean anything. Like mine's CVO of Vengresso. Well, first of all, no one knows what a CVO is. It's Chief Visibility Officer. And no one knows what a Vengresso is. Like, is it soup? Is it a race car? What is a Vengresso, right? And so it's, by the way, it's Latin for ventus and ingressos, which is sales revenue. But anyway, if I just had CVO of Vengresso, that would do nothing for my brand. So instead, basically using that headline to tell people, who you help and how you help them. It's 120 characters. That's going to go a lot further towards attracting buyers to your profiles. So just changing up the headline, and again, we usually give 10 options to our clients, who they are and how they help. And then expanding on that in the summary section, that could be a little bit tough because, the summary section really is more about your role within the company and who they help and how they help them. But it's easy to upload media. So compiling some media links that they can upload to make their profile more of a resource than a resume. And then creating a description of the company for the experience section that, again, aligns with the company's values. That's actually what the company does, because a lot of times people will pull one or two lines from their resume, or they might not put anything in that description section, which, by the way, is 2,000 characters. If we're lucky, they'll pull it from the About Us section, but they might have pulled it from the About Us section 6 years ago. And since then, we've gone through 16 rebrandings. And so it's completely inaccurate. So making sure that they've got the most accurate company description, the most accurate media to upload, the best the best headline that really talks about who you serve and how you serve them, and then a strong background image. And then the other thing is the contact information. Make sure that the folks have the right landing pages on their profile, not their old company's link. And a VA can help with at the very least checking to make sure that everyone in the company is aligned, or even, helping them do that.
So once your profile is kind of nice and clean and snazzy and engaging, what's the next thing for, again, these executive assistants, personal assistants, virtual assistants? What's the next thing they can do to kind of develop as a thought leader, or really just cause their LinkedIn profile and their LinkedIn presence to be more than just a, nice looking one-page profile?
Exactly. Well, the next part is engagement. The next part's keeping an eye on your inbox and make sure you're not missing out on any business there. But after that comes engagement. And so, whether you're doing this again for an executive at a company or for yourself, and why not do both, it's about finding content that's relevant to your buyer persona. So it's always important that you actually know who that person is. It's important for you to know who you serve and how you serve them. That is key. You might have more than one buyer persona, and that's fine. But what you're going to want to do is start to curate content, not just from your own blog, not just from your own company's YouTube channel, but content that is of interest to your buyer, to the industry that they're in. If you are, creatively inclined and you can create content, great. But if not, curate content, curate infographics, quotes, blog posts, checklists, videos. You might even create some native video to upload. that is reflective of the industry in general. You probably just don't want to use, a competitor's stuff, but that's reflective of the industry in general. And then, of course, once in a while you throw in your own company stuff, but you don't want it to appear like it's an advertisement. And it's interesting, CSO Insights, which is a Miller Heiman Group company, they just did some research on this. And what they discovered is that, as far as trust factor, people are a lot less likely to trust the CEO of a company or the marketing team of a company, but they're a lot more likely to trust influencers within the company, employees within the company, and thought leaders within an industry who share content. And so, you want to create this for the CEO, but really you might have more impact as the VA sharing this content because it shows enthusiasm and engagement. And hey, if a virtual assistant is enthusiastic about this company and sharing content, then there might be something here. And I'm going to keep reading a little bit more. The other thing, and I cannot remember where this stat comes from, if it's from LinkedIn's digital sales report or where it came from. But anyway, or it was HubSpot maybe. It was something like winning vendor or buyers buy from vendors where they've read 5 to 6 pieces of their information. So a vendor is going to read 5 to 6 pieces, or 5 to 7 pieces rather, of information about your product or service before they buy from you. And the problem is some people are social selling savvy and they might be your competitors. And if your competitors are sharing content on LinkedIn and your buyers are reading it, that's who they're going to trust as the thought leader. And it just doesn't take that much time and effort to find content your own or industry relevant content and post it to LinkedIn and become the curator of your timeline and become the curator of industry expertise and start to associate yourself with that expertise and thought leader positioning. And I'll just say one more thing about that. Don't just share a link. You've got about 1,200 characters to write almost a mini blog post, and you don't have to be a writer, and you don't have to be a marketing expert, and you don't have to be an author in order to do that. All you have to do is identify the audience, who the article is for. Hey, are you a marketing or sales professional? You might want to read this article. Take 5 minutes to click through, or 3 minutes to click through, or 12 minutes to click through. You'll learn about bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me in comments below. Hashtag @mention. So it might take you 5 minutes to craft the description of the content that you're sharing. Again, just identifying who the content's for, what the content's about, what they should do with the content, and of course, make yourself accessible to them if they have questions about the content. If you just do that once a day, you find some good content to share. And again, you can replicate this for if you're managing a CEO or someone, an executive's profile, you could do it for them too. But once a day you do that, and it will massively increase your visibility and engagement on LinkedIn, and that drives business.
Yeah. Those are great tips. What about LinkedIn groups? Do you have any thoughts on how to engage with LinkedIn groups? Or
right now I'm kind of putting a pass on LinkedIn groups. I think there's so much opportunity, and unfortunately, LinkedIn, when there was so much spam with groups that LinkedIn went, okay, we're not going to let spammers in anymore. And so they just locked groups down so much, including notifications, that even if you're active in a group, chances are you're not going to get notified that your discussion that you posted is getting any engagement. So you're ignoring it, you're forgetting about it, and it's just sitting there. And that's why, in my humble opinion, groups aren't very good right now. Also, a lot of people will create a group not realizing that it is an effort to manage and monitor that. You need to be a community manager of that group if you're creating it. a exception to that rule is there's a group in that I follow on LinkedIn, and it's, let me see if I can. Sufit is her name. She manages the group, and she does the best job of monitoring a group I think I've ever seen. It's called Step Into the Spotlight, and I mean, her whole profile's even about it. And she's got very, 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 very strict guidelines about what to do within her group. And you can only ask questions. You can't get in there. You can post, a blog post or something in a response to a question, but you can only ask questions. And because people are asking questions, they're getting answers. And she's really, really good about monitoring the group and notifying people if they're not responding. So she's done a phenomenal job with her group. And she's really the only one who's impressed me. And so the long and the short answer is, unless you're willing to invest in a group, invest your time in a group, it's probably not worth it. And if you are, it could, her whole business basically runs on and through this group. So she's done a phenomenal job of it. It's TSUFIT. I'm probably mispronouncing her name, and if I am, I apologize. But TSUFIT, you can look for her on LinkedIn. You can see Step Into the Spotlight and see what she's done about that.
Awesome. And I'll put that link in the show notes too, so people can find it.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that your assistant or one of your assistants have done that, I'm sure there are many of these things, but maybe you can describe a time when your assistant saved the day?
Oh, yeah. So, it's interesting. So I told the story about how I kind of got started on LinkedIn. And for 3 years, I was a solopreneur, bootstrapper, doing everything myself. I mean, everything myself. And there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who feel me on that. And then finally, I was kind of struggling as you do. So finally, I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. I've got to hire someone. So I reached out to my friend Jessica Peterson, who had a VA, and I said, who can you recommend? She's possibly the best networker I've ever met in my life. And she said, well, my VA needs some extra hours. Why don't you train her up? And so Crystal was my first virtual assistant. And I will tell you, she paid for herself in the first month. Like I was barely making my own paycheck, but she paid for herself within the first month, and she started generating revenue within the second month because I could I was using her to do at the time LinkedIn Done For You and stuff like that. And so plus she let me do what only I do best, and she did the rest. And so there was a lot of stuff I didn't have to deal with that I was bad at anyway. And then when Crystal moved along, I said, okay, do you know anyone who would be really good? And so she said, oh, Nicole, you should talk to my friend Nicole. And so Nicole started working for me almost full time right away. And it was during that time that, because I had the extra time, because she was taking care of, for want of a better word, the menial tasks, it freed up enough of my time that I was able to do more blogging. I was able to create more visibility online. And that's when Wiley reached out to me and said, hey, we really like the blog that you've got on LinkedIn. It was an app back then. You could pull blogs into your LinkedIn profile. Actually, it's about 2009, I guess. I really like the blog that you have on LinkedIn. Do you want to write a book for us? Major publishing house asking if you want to write a book for them. Okay. And so there's no way I would have had the time to write the blog, to create the visibility without Nicole's and Crystal's assistance. And I so value the industry of VAs and executive assistants, EAs, because it allows us to do what we do best. And God bless, because Nicole, I don't even know how she does it day in and day out, but I probably need to give her another raise.
Yes, you do.
But
yes, you do.
I do. I really do. Yeah. And I just, there's no way a company can function without an effective and a functioning VA or EA presence. I just don't think there is, whether you're literally a bootstrap solopreneur or a Fortune 50 company. They're absolutely integral to our success, in my humble opinion.
Totally agree. All right, well, let's finish this amazing interview with the last question. Should we be concerned about or even worried about investing so much time and energy into LinkedIn, which is a social media platform that hypothetically could, become obsolete someday, or they could change their algorithms overnight? And, what do you think about that as far as, is LinkedIn here to stay? And should we, a lot of people talk about, you need to have your own website, you need to own your content, you need to own your platform. That way, if the algorithms change, you're not screwed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes, of course, build your house on your own land, not on somebody else's land, for sure. Microsoft invested 26 plus billion, I think it's 26.2 or 26.4 billion with a B dollars in LinkedIn. It's not going away, right? Like they invested in Skype. Skype hasn't gone away either. And so LinkedIn is most definitely not going anywhere. The other thing is LinkedIn is a lot more conservative than the other social networking sites. And on the one hand, that drives me nuts. Like they just came out with LinkedIn Live and I still don't have it. But, and the other social networking sites have had them for 2 or 3 years. But the other thing you don't see are all of these crazy swings and shifts, and you learn how to do one thing and then, all of a sudden it's gone. And there's a lot of that going on the other social networking sites. And yeah, I don't think Facebook's really going anywhere. There's too many people using it. I don't think Instagram's going anywhere. It's too popular. I don't think YouTube's going anywhere. I mean, except for that they've shifted their model a lot to be more of a network, even than just a place where you pop your videos. And so I absolutely, obviously my whole company is built on the fact that LinkedIn's around to stay. I absolutely think that utilizing LinkedIn, especially if you're, business to business, if you provide services to businesses, it's 1000% crucial, I think, to your success. So yes, invest the time, invest the effort. I mean, worst case scenario, and I just can't see it ending other than, in an apocalypse. Should LinkedIn go away and something else come up, you can still bring your brand and your marketing and your network with you wherever, happens to pop up next, but not if you don't have one. And so, it's absolutely worth investing the time and effort into LinkedIn.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Viveka, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. It's great tips and tricks. Where can we find you online, and where can we find out more about LinkedIn and improving your LinkedIn presence?
Sure. So if you just Google LinkedIn expert, this is why I love LinkedIn so much. If you just Google LinkedIn expert, my profile should be the first, second, or third thing that shows up under the paid ads. Just click through and invite me to, you can follow me right away. But if you click on the 3 dots, you can invite me to connect. Just make sure you customize the invitation either on mobile or on your desktop. So as I said, so that I actually see it, not my assistant. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. You can find us at Vengreso, Vengreso, just one S, Vengreso. We're not the soup, Vengreso.com. And we've got our blog, we've got 2 podcasts and a blog, and just like more information than you could possibly consume in a lifetime on social selling. So, enjoy browsing around through our podcasts and our blog, truly about anything you ever needed to know about LinkedIn. And similarly, our YouTube channel is fantastic. We've got training videos, testimonials, case studies, interviews. I mean, we've got so much much on our YouTube channel. And you can find us on YouTube. Just go to joinonyoutube.com, follow on twitter.com, join on linkedin.com. All of those places will take you to our Vengresso presence online.
Awesome. Well, I'll share those links in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Viveka for a great interview. Be sure to check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/83. And just a quick note that we actually recorded this interview a little over a year ago, and things got a bit crazy with the world and my schedule. So I'm finally publishing it, and now Viveka actually has LinkedIn Live. So if you want to see how LinkedIn Live works, check out her profile as well. She's been doing a lot of LinkedIn Live videos. All right, until next time, keep leading well and have a good one.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com